Hi, everyone. This is Podcast for Patients with the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation. I'm Leigh Clark, Director of Patient Services. Our podcast series is brought to you with special thanks to our patients, families, and caregivers, just like you and our corporate sponsors. Thanks to everyone for supporting this series. Today, we're going to be talking about aplastic anemia with Mario Rivera. So welcome, Mario. How are you today?
Hi, Lee. Thank you. I'm very well, thank you, and happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays to you too. So tell us a little bit about you.
I am Mario Rivera. I live in New Jersey. I am married with two boys, Jet and Vance, 13, soon to be 13 and 11. My wife's name is Allison Hines. We've been together since 2007, and life is good.
Awesome. What was going on in your life before your diagnosis of aplastic anemia?
Yeah, just normal, routine things. Actually, Allison and myself just started dating right around that time. So it was a few months prior to the diagnosis that we were just newly dating. And it was, normal working and day-to-day routines. And it was unfortunate that it took a routine dental filling and an exercise regimen to find out that something wasn't right. So after several hospital stays, visits, testings, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with severe aplastic anemia.
And so you're in a new relationship. So how did you kind of discuss your diagnosis?
Yeah, everything was on the fly. I mean, because everything was so new. Our relationship was new. Hearing about this disease was new. The diagnosis was new, and of course, it wasn't the positive news you'd like to hear. It was kind of a reactionary event. So basically, it led to lots of researching. What we did do, and I always say this, and I'm grateful for this, is our first resource was the foundation, that we were able to gather concrete information, valued concrete information, where we were able to now determine a clearer course of what we were going to do. So I thank the foundation for that. And then from that point on, it was, finding the right type of care, and what to do next. I was willing to do whatever it took, to get better.
And when it came to finding a place to get medical treatment, find a physician, how did you go about doing that? And where did you end up going for treatment? And what was your treatment?
So like I said, our first tried and true resource was the foundation. So after connecting with the group there, so we were able to go to a local caregiver here in New Jersey. And I think they only had one patient prior to me with aplastic anemia. They suggested that I participate in a clinical trial with NIH. So fortunately for me, I was accepted. And after meeting with the team there, it was determined that I would be treated with horse ATG. That was one of the protocols in the clinical trials at that time.
Once you got to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, what was that like? Because you're now going to be participating in a clinical trial.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, the diagnosis was scary. The whole process was new to me. I wasn't really sure of what was involved. Of course, after researching it and asking the right questions with the team there, it puts your mind at ease, but overall, you're still concerned because, there's different foreign medicines coming into your body and different transfusions that you have to receive, which is part of the protocol. But with that being said, I was really focused on getting better. So once they reassured me that this was one of the protocols that they use and they've had success with it, and just to backtrack a little bit too, Lee, because at the time I was 38 when I was diagnosed, believe it or not, the norm back then was not, I was considered too old basically for bone marrow transplant.
Mhm.
And I have three older siblings, three sisters, and none of them were matches. So they were looking as best as we can for a 100% match. My sisters weren't a match. And like I said, it just wasn't the norm back then to receive a bone marrow transplant at that age. So, in the horse ATG, I trusted.
And once you were going through ATG, were there any side effects that you encountered?
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the side effects they discussed was the serum sickness. And the way I was told was that sometimes it doesn't happen, and if and when it does, it's not right away. So unfortunately, I was a byproduct of two things: receiving the side effects of the serum sickness, and unfortunately receiving it about 2 weeks after I was home. So it wasn't until the transfusions were finished, I was released from NIH and back in New Jersey when the serum sickness side effects started to kick in. It affected my joints. What happened, I guess it was, in hindsight, it was a blessing. I was already scheduled to see my oncologist here in New Jersey. So one more thing I neglected to say, Lee, NIH was heading up the entire protocol for me, but they were working with my local oncologist. So I still had my team in New Jersey that I was seeing on a daily basis. That morning, I was scheduled to see them for, my routine transfusions, and, the way things were just going normally for me back then is when the serum sickness kicked in, and it was not pleasant. We call it the shake and bake, Lee. I'm sure you've heard other patients say that, but it was pretty bad.
So it sounds like you had a really good support team with your home team in New Jersey working with the NIH team in Maryland. So you were really very well supported by both teams.
For sure. Absolutely. I still see the same group, not the same doctor, because my original doctor has moved on, but I see the same oncology group here. And I also re-enrolled after my 10-year clinical trial period was over. I did re-enroll with NIH to continue to participate in the clinical trial. So I actually just saw them in September. So everybody is still working closely together.
And the current trial that you're in, is it a natural history study, like monitoring you post treatment? What is that trial about?
Yeah, basically just that, Lee. So the first 10 years and the last time I just saw them in September, it's basically what you just said, gathering data, which fortunately and unfortunately includes a bone marrow biopsy. The good news is, because I'm one of the lucky ones and my counts are maintaining stability and within normal ranges, um, and my results came back good this last trip over at NIH, I no longer have to have a bone marrow biopsy when I go back. And just to be clear, it's not every visit in New Jersey I was getting a bone marrow biopsy. It was only with NIH. And at this point, Lee, it's every 3 years I see them. So that was where the bone marrow biopsies were coming in. But because they have enough data with me right now, and as long as things stay the way they are, knock on wood here, I wouldn't get a bone marrow biopsy my next visit there.
While you were going through treatment and you came home, how long did it take for you to see a response?
Yeah. So because it's been so long, I always have to think about that. It wasn't instantaneous. So, like many patients that go through aplastic anemia, my results, at least on the positive side, were not instantaneous. It was about the 2-year mark when things were slowly and surely creeping up. I was tapering off the cyclosporin protocol I was on. My CBCs would eventually creep up, and they would, kind of go up and down. But it really wasn't until about the 1.5 year, the 2-year mark, when they started to stabilize and within the normal range. So I know I said it before about being lucky, but even my counts in general are within, just normal ranges. So that was it. And then that was including the taper of cyclosporin. So that at that point, that was the only medicine I was on for the aplastic anemia. So 2 years I was medicine free and transfusion free.
That's amazing. And I'm sure it was very frustrating waiting for something to happen, like waiting for a response.
For sure. When I think back to the first phases of being diagnosed with aplastic anemia, it's hard to be in the moment. It's easy to at least for me, let my mind wander. And yeah, that's where I was. A lot of times, Lee, I was, it was this is not I guess this is just the way it's going to be. I'll accept this as what it is, and I don't think they're ever going to get better. And then the frustration, because with the low counts come the transfusions, and then of course, there's a certain lifestyle you have to live where you have to be extremely careful and cautious of how you take care of yourself and what you expose yourself to. So, that it's frustrating, but I knew it was part of the process.
Do you ever worry about relapse and that the disease will come back?
I do. Of course I do. Yeah. Um, I like to participate in the monthly support groups, and that's one of the things that I like to listen to, and I hope it never happens with anyone. And we've had great success stories, but because I never got a transplant and I'm not really cured per se, we like to call it a robust recovery. Yeah, the thought of relapse is absolutely always in the back of my mind.
And you mentioned about the support groups and how do you feel those help you and your family?
Tremendously. I mean, I encourage anyone to participate, whether you're a patient, a caregiver, whether I mean, everyone has their own journey. So whatever it is you want to hear, participate, or take away from, I think they're so valuable. Like I said, I like to participate more for this to give some type of support and to, assure some of the newer patients or some of the patients or caregivers that are on there that, there are some success stories, and everyone's dealing with this differently, and everyone has their own questions. It's what matters to them. I just like to participate and offer whatever I can. And the truth of the matter is, I gain so much from those for myself because I go there with an open mind. Each support session that I attend, I try to just take something away, even if it's just being a little bit more grateful, or hopefully easing someone's burden with some of the questions they may have. That's tremendously helpful to me.
And you're a longtime survivor. Do you still feel a need to keep up on what's the latest in aplastic anemia, and how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fortunately, I was able to see you in the group by participating in person finally at a conference in Texas in November. I think those are valuable. Any conference, any of the literature, any of the webinars, any of the email communications we receive, they're valuable. And even on my own, whether it be researching it through the foundation's website or something that possibly was shared to me from my oncology team or someone from the support group, I think that's important. I think it's important to just kind of have your ear to the ground of this, because things change, and I'd love to hear the things that are being done differently in a positive way, and things that they're trying, and some of the new medicines and technology. I think is great. But yeah, I'd love to stay on top of that, and I'll take it from whichever resource I can.
And our last question for you will be, if you had a bit of advice to give to another aplastic anemia patient and family, what would that be?
Advice, I would say, have faith in the process, and have faith in whatever gets you through, this particular time of your life, because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's life is different. Everyone's reaction to being diagnosed to this disease is different. So, have faith in the process. Ask the right questions. Have faith in your medical team, and if you don't, ask the right questions. You need to be your best advocate. It said a lot, but it's the truth. No one's going to take care of you better than yourself or your immediate family. But ask the right questions. Research a tangible resource, the procedures, the processes, the questions, your disease, and ultimately have faith in the process and have faith in whatever gets you through it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your personal experience and your journey with all of us. If you'd like to find out more about aplastic anemia and treatments, please visit our website at AAMDS.org. You can also get information by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, or give us a call on our helpline, 800-747-2820. This concludes our podcast.